Hello again, this is Ashley Lucas with State Hearings ACMS team, and this video is going to show ACMS business partners how to use the claimant profile, what kind of information you're going to find in there, how to make any changes, who should be a claimant or a beneficiary on an appeal. So first, let's start off at looking at a claimant profile. So you can do a claimant search or maybe a beneficiary search. A claimant search on a name. If you have a last name, it's better. If I go with a first name, it's going to do a search and come up with all the people that have this string of letters in their first name, whether it's John or Johnny, Johnette. So you can see there's quite a few. Jonathan, that's a little bit different. You can see there's quite a few people. So if you're going to have a very common first name, you probably want to put a last name in there. But I'm just going to pick somebody at random here, and we're going to take a look at their claimant profile. All right, so ACMS really has two pieces that work together to have an appeal. The first piece of the appeal is the person's personal information, and the second piece of the appeal is their actual appeal information. So, for example, this appeal that I pulled up, this person doesn't have any cases in the system. Most appeals in ACMS, you will see a case. If there's a profile, there's usually a case that goes with the profile. Right now I'm in the training environment, so we do have a lot of profiles with no cases that they generated for us to help test ACMS. But let me try to find somebody who is actually has some cases. So let me look for someone. I know that there's somebody named Georgia in here that has lots of cases. So let me do a search. This person right here I know has lots of cases. Oh, there we go. So this is what an appeal profile looks like, and this person, Miss Georgia O'Keefe, has a whole bunch of appeals. Some of them are closed, some of them are pending scheduling, some of them have been heard. So hopefully we don't have any claimants that have a huge list of appeals here, but we use this person's profile to kind of test ACMS, so we do have a lot of appeals for this person. So as you can see here on the profile, it has the person's first name and last name, and these little red R's mean it's a required field, so those are required. There's also a place if the person has an alias that you want to identify, you can put that in there as well. The person's birth date of birth, is also a required field. That's a really old person there. If you do not know the person's date of birth, since this is a required field, you do need to put a number in here. And there's a standard number that we use when we don't know the appellant's birth date. And that standard number is 01/01/1753. So when I see that birth date, I know that's like an unknown birth date. Let's see, if you have if the person is deceased, now this becomes important. If the person is deceased, you're going to make sure to get click on this yes dial here, this radio button that says yes. And I'll show you what that looks like in their appeals once you click on deceased. If you know their social security number, then you can go ahead and put it in there. If you only know the last four, I would say you would go ahead and just put zeros and then the last four. Or if you don't know what the social security number is, I would just leave it blank. It's not a required field. You don't know what the social security number is, just leave that blank. Some other fields, if you happen to know them, it's not required, is their Medi-Cal ID number or their SIN number. And then this demographic information is something a lot of our e-filers do. They do fill it out, but when we are taking appeals here at State Hearings, we leave that blank because they're not required, and it can be very time consuming if we filled out every single field that is in here. So we focus mostly when we're taking appeals over the telephone on these required fields. So this person has selected email address as their preferred mode of communication. They have two choices really. They can go postal or email. If they choose postal address, you can see that required would be their actual address, city, state, zip code. But if they pick email address, the only thing that's required is really their email address. County of residence, country, most of the time that's United States. And even though this person has selected email address, if you happen to know the actual snail mail address, it's always good to put that in there just in case we need to mail something to this person. I always say at minimum try to get the email address, if there is one, the snail mail address, and then a phone number. That way, if we need to contact them, we have 3 different ways of trying to get a hold of this person. And we also have fields for secondary phone numbers as well. And then at the very bottom of the profile page, you're going to see a box that says special accommodations requested. Now, these are those special accommodations that people need for, usually it's ADA type accommodations, like they need wheelchair access, or some folks say, I don't know, guide, hearing, listening devices, listening device required. Whatever the person needs to be able to attend the hearing at all. All right. So if you're filling this out from a blank form, you're going to fill out, make sure that all the little R's are completed. Once that's all done, you're going to hit that save button. And all of your updated information has now been saved. Now, I know I said that this person is deceased. Let's take a look at one of their appeals and see what it looks like. This one's improper. I don't know if there's a flag that comes up here. I think since I just put the person down as deceased, any future appeals would indicate that the claimant was deceased. Okay, so let's go back home and let's pick another appeal, another claimant. And let's just say that this Mr. Bauer has contacted you and he needs to change his mailing address. He's getting all of his notifications via postal mail, but now he's moved to a different street address. He doesn't live at 2001 North Rancho anymore. And by the way, all of these are fictional profiles. We're in the training environment, so we are not compromising any personal information on anyone. So now this person lives at 1234 Main Street, but still in Colton, and the postal code hasn't changed. So you can go ahead and make the change, and if you need to change the city, state, zip, anything like that, or county of residence, you can do that. And then you're going to go down and hit the save button. So one of the nice things about ACMS is it does check whatever address you put in with the United States Postal Service. And if it doesn't find a match in the USPS database, it lets you know. It has this little white box that pops up. And it says we couldn't validate your address. So if that happens, you just want to make sure that you have the correct address identified here. A lot of times you'll put in an address and it'll pop up with this box, but it'll have a suggestion. Go ahead and take that suggestion because that's the way the United States Postal Service writes that email address or that snail mail address down. So you might want to use their preferred method since they're the ones that are delivering the mail. I know that I made up this address, so I'm just going to tell it to keep, but most of the time you're going to hit that yes, go back and change. All right, so now you can see that this new address is now in this person's profile. Another thing that's really handy is this address history box. If you click on that, it's going to show you all the previous addresses for this person and the dates that those addresses were active. So let's just say that I made a mistake and I changed the wrong person's address. This wasn't really for John Bowers. I should have changed a Jane Bowers. So now I can go back and change it back to this because that address is preserved in ACMS. So that's pretty handy. Let's see. Oh, another thing I want to mention, whenever you're onlining a profile, if you're one of those counties or responsible agencies that onlines profiles, there is a little chart that I have here that I will show you. That hopefully, there we go. That shows you whose profile it is in the first place. For ACA Magi Medi-Cal cases, the claimant profile is always the taxpayer. So whoever the taxpayer is for that family unit, if there's a benefit recipient that is somebody other than the taxpayer, then they can be listed in the contacts as a beneficiary. And that's the contacts tab. If you're not sure about the contacts tab or want more information, you can check out the video called Assigning a Hearing Representative. It shows you a little bit more about the contacts tab, and adding a beneficiary is very much like adding a hearing representative. For CalFresh, CalWorks, and CAPI cases, the claimant profile is always the benefit recipient. For IHSS and General Jurisdiction Medi-Cal and Scopes cases, it is always the parent or guardian if you're requesting an appeal on behalf of a minor's benefit. So the claimant profile is going to be the parent guardian, and the minor is going to be listed as a beneficiary in the contacts tab. Same thing for a conservator. If you have a conservator requesting an appeal on the behalf of a protected adult, the protected adult is listed in contacts as beneficiary, and the conservator is listed as the claimant profile, the claimant. Of course, that a conservator needs to prove their conservatorship, like with some sort of document saying they have conservatorship over that person, to represent that adult benefit, protected adult beneficiary. If a person requests an appeal on behalf of any other adult beneficiary, then the adult benefit recipient is listed as the claimant profile. And the person making the request for the appeal is listed in the contacts as a requester or an authorized representative. So what's the difference between that? A requester is somebody who has asked for an appeal, and they're probably going to be labeled as an improper claimant or improper requester until they prove that they have permission from the adult benefit recipient to be the representative in writing, and they've let state hearings know about that, and then they'll be changed to an authorized representative. So if there are multiple benefit recipients, for example, like multiple children that are receiving benefits, each child is going to be a recipient of a benefit, so the parent has to fill out several appeals. They can use their same claimant profile and create different appeals with each of the children separately being labeled as the beneficiary in the contact tab. Of course, if you have any questions, I understand that this can be very confusing, you can send your questions to shdcsu@dss.ca.gov. That's our customer service unit, and they can help you with determining who your claimant profile should be and who your beneficiary should be. So same thing with those foster care or RFA cases. It's always the parent, foster parent, caregiver, payee. That's going to be the profile, claimant profile. And then the minor is always going to be listed in contacts as a beneficiary. In general, if the benefit recipient is a minor, they're going to be listed in contacts as a beneficiary. Let's see, we already talked about multiple children. And then I showed you what a deceased beneficiary looks like. You just make sure that that tab, that little button that says deceased, yes or no, is clicked. And whoever is making the appeal on behalf of that deceased beneficiary, it's usually an estate representative or an executor. They would be listed in contacts as either an authorized representative again or a requester. And once they've proved they have executorship, then they would change that to an authorized representative. So very similar to this up here. All right, so that's the different types of people who would have a profile in ACMS. And once you've had your profile, if you have an appeal and you need to file another one, all they would do is go in there and hit create an appeal, or they can use their profile and file however many appeals they need to do, and then update them. The claimant can go in and update their own profile as long as they have an ACMS account. All right, if you have any questions regarding this video, regarding claimant profiles, please, you can send your request to acms@dss.ca.gov. And this is Ashley. Thank you for viewing this video. We'll see you next time.